Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, a bit of a new setup. If you're watching our video format on YouTube or Facebook, we are covering some films, of course, but I just want to say really quick, if you're joining us over there, pardon our dust, if you're listening to the audio version of the show, you don't know what we're talking about, come check it out. Change some things up. It's not so bad. Our first movie this week, we're talking about Blue Beetle. Of course, DC's first foray into the DC universe, as headed up by James Gunn, is out. We have seen it. We're also going to talk about Oldboy, Park Chan-Wook's vengeance classic from 2003. The 20th anniversary re-release is out in select theaters all over the country. It's a 4K remaster. We went and saw it. We're excited to talk about it. And yes, keen fans of the show, remember, we have talked about it before on Off Script. So a bit of a return. Excited to talk about it again. Also, a bonus review this week. A movie I didn't plan on covering, but I watched it and I thought maybe it'd be worth talking about here. Andy hasn't seen it, so it's going to be a solo. Red, White, and Royal Blue on Amazon Prime. I watched the movie. I'm excited to talk about it. It's actually not bad, so stick around for that. We need to talk about some new trailers, some things coming out. It's a jam-packed show this week. And before we get to all of it, we got to talk about the news. Our first story this week, Apple sued over Tetris by Gizmodo editor, who alleges the film stole his book about the Soviet game. Smaller story this week, but Andy found this. Andy, what's going on here?
So, like you said, Dan Ackerman, who's the editor-in-chief at Gizmodo, of all places, alleges in a lawsuit that the Apple TV stole his idea of the Tetris movie that they made. It turns out he, in 2016 or so, sent a manuscript to Tetris Company in order to, try to get a film or something made. They actually did not engage with him. They didn't have any meetings with him. They sent him a cease and desist letter. So it's not exactly like anything was off the ground. Now he's saying, "Oh, Apple made this movie. That's basically based on my book," and now he wants to collect damages from it. The reason I wanted to talk about this, though, is that this kind of thing happens a lot. Disney gets sued all the time for their IP. They've been sued, I think, at least 3 times over Inside Out. Different book writers say that they came up with the idea and they were in talks with Disney, and then Disney stole their idea. The problem with this is that if you publish your work, like if you have a manuscript or a novel or something, as soon as it's published and in the public space, you can't really claim that your idea was stolen because you're allowed to be inspired by, by media, books, TV, film. And unless that company cites it specifically, you're not going to win this. If Dan Ackerman had private meetings with Tetris or Apple TV and they were discussing, we want to turn this into a book or into a movie or a series, and then they just cut him off and then just make it anyways. Something like that, but you kind of have to have substantial meetings with a publisher that's really interested, and you cannot publish that work at all because you usually lose your deal. So this kind of comes up again and again, and it's generally silly, and the law always tends to side on the side of the studio.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough bag to try to grab, right? Like, even if you feel like you've got them, by the tail, and you watch a movie and you feel like, oh man, this is lifted right out of this thing that I wrote or this thing that I made a while ago. Like, you're suing Apple, the biggest company in the world. Not to say justice shouldn't be served, but this guy's going for a settlement, right? Well, what is he hoping to do? Unseat Tim Cook and take the throne? No. He just wants a piece of the pie. And I totally get that. I'm sure this is the kind of thing where you go for it and you just hope that their lawyers are going to settle, right? It's easier to just write you a check for $25,000 or something and tell you to go away. Hopefully he doesn't feel like this is his life's work and he's genuinely been robbed, because I think it's so difficult to prove, right? You're spot on. When you're talking about something that's functionally history, it would be really challenging to say that Apple didn't also do their own research. Apple Films, I should say, or Marv Productions, who produced the film, from Matthew Vaughn, actually, who's worked a lot with Taron Egerton in the past, who is the lead of the film. It's tough to say, and you're right. Disney runs into this a ton. They've run into it for years, right? Didn't stop them. They don't seem to have a problem with it. But hey, maybe my man will get his 15 minutes, right? Maybe he'll get his maybe he'll get the bag. More importantly,
that's why a lot of times studios, they won't even open the mail. If you send them a manuscript or something, they're not even going to open it because they have to be able to say, we never saw it, we never put put our eyes on it. And the fact that the Tetris company sent him a cease and desist letter, like, no, we're not interested in you at all. Please stop sending this mail, doesn't bode well for him.
Speaking of things that don't bode well, there's a price increase happening for a couple of your favorite streaming services from Disney. Yes, the House of Mouse themselves. Disney Plus and Hulu will both be going up $3. Dude, I'm so bummed. I'm
In this
subscribed to
economy?
both of these services. I'm subscribed to both of these services. That's a $6 hike if you're on both of them like me. I'm thinking of dumping one, but I watch stuff on Hulu right now, and Disney's about to roll into the holidays. And I like watching Halloween Town in October and Christmas movies, and like I feel like they got me over a barrel here, Andy. I don't like it. Like what is this about?
Oh, like you said, there's a big price increase coming. Disney Plus is jumping from $11 to $14, and this is without ads versions. Hulu without ads is going to go up from $15 to $18. But what they really want you to do, there's a little bit of a reprieve here. The price for a bundle of Disney Plus and Hulu will be it'll be $8 if you get the version with ads. So $8 for both. That's kind of a deal that is with ads. If you don't want ads, the only problem with this is, like, if you don't want ads, the bundle is $20, but it does also include ESPN Plus. But there's no kind of there's no middle ground. The studios were doing this. They had like an ad tier, like kind of fewer ads, and then but now they just kind of have two tiers. They have the ad supported tier, which is generally pretty cheap, and then the no ads, which is a lot more expensive.
I'm really disappointed by like the audience response Netflix and Disney and the streaming services, I should say, are getting from these kind of price hikes, because they don't get enough of a dip in business to stop doing it, or certainly roll it back. Additionally, like, they seem to have decided that they stand to make more money from ad-supported content than people paying individually for non-ad-supported content. And that bums me out, because I like the internet without ads. It's really great. And that's a harder thing to get now. Like, it's harder now than ever before to watch stuff without ads, because companies are starting to figure out ways to get around ad blockers, or they're trying to incentivize you, right, with some kind of like short payment system. It bums me out. I don't want to watch these services with ads. I like watching them without ads. I'm also not a sports guy, so yeah, like, I don't go for the ESPN Plus. So yeah, it's going to be like $16 for both of these, which is not awesome. Like, really, really not excited. I don't know. That's kind of the kit and caboodle. It's not Disney's only move, though. They're also cracking down on password sharing. I think Andy might have mentioned that in there, but a separate story. Yeah, Bob Iger says, yep, on Hulu and Disney Plus, we are exploring ways to halt password sharing. Shout out to Netflix, who kicked this off a few months ago by kicking off anti-password sharing things in the U.S. It was very successful. Yeah, they didn't lose any money, so everybody's going to do it. Yay! Yeah, no sharing passwords with your friends. We'll all be on cable again soon. Can't wait. What do you think, Andy?
Well, it was shown to be successful in the Netflix model. They did lose some subscribers, but they had net gain overall. And so we as predicted on this show, that other studios would follow suit. And sure enough, Disney is going to be doing it with Disney Plus, Hulu. Those are the main ones they have. Unfortunately, it works, and so they have. There's no incentive to not crack down.
I do think this will be the thing that gets me to kick one of these services. Like, obviously, I'm okay with getting my pocket picked, but I draw the line at not being able to share with friends and family. But really, it's a great value. Like, to be able to have Disney Plus and every member of my family can watch it wherever they're at. My sister in Colorado, my parents in Houston, whatever. Like, that's really nice. Even Christine's family can watch it. Now that's not a thing. Now all that value is extended to one household, my own. And suddenly I'm not as incentivized to keep paying on months I don't watch, because I'm the only one who can engage with it. Like, if I don't watch Disney Plus for 2 months, well, okay, fine. My sister's been watching The Simpsons over there. Great. It's getting some value, right? Like, I feel like my dollar is being spent in a way that is important to me. Cracking down on password sharing takes that away. Like, suddenly it doesn't matter as much, and I don't get as much stretch with like what my dollar can do. So I don't like this either. Naturally, right? Like, I don't like the money. I don't like it costing more, and I don't like seeing more ads. Andy, what do we do? What's the answer?
Oh man, we're just gonna have to see how hard they crack down.
Yeah.
How if there's any backlash. we'll have to have to see. They don't have an option to add on like you can add on a member on with Netflix. You can add on like an additional up to 2 family members for a smaller fee. Like
$7. Yeah.
yeah, but they're not offering any of that with with this crackdown.
Yeah. I don't know. One more thing from Disney. VFX workers are voting to unionize at Marvel. I can't believe this is actually happening. This has been a thing that's been talked about for months, years, actually. VFX studios have been reportedly very mistreated by Marvel. Some have been blacklisted. Some have been lowballed. They've had bidding wars to see what studio is willing to kneel the deepest to get a Marvel project, right? And it seems like finally VFX workers who are overworked, underpaid, skipping weekends, working nights, holidays, they might finally get their moment in the sun here. Obviously, following SAG-AFTRA strikes and the writer's strike in Hollywood, seems like I don't know, there might be some action. What do you think, Andy?
This is a historic moment. This is the first time that VFX professionals have kind of banded together to unionize, and they're going to be part of the kind of larger union representing over 170,000 people that work in the industry. So it's an exciting time, and it's nice to see them kind of band together in a moment of solidarity.
Yeah, I think it's evident. There's a great stat in here from Vulture. Around 90% of all films in release feature varying degrees of VFX fine-tuning. 90%. This is like if the companies that made cameras started unionizing. Like the potential effect this could have on the industry is vast and deep. There are so many VFX shots in films. Most of the good ones you don't even notice, right? It'll be like a backplate for like a scene, scenery shot, or like some kind of landscape in the background where they just add like buildings or clouds or whatever. But like it all falls into the same bucket. Like talent, artists that deserve to be rewarded for their work. I think it's a great time to strike it up. Yeah, like seeing what SAG-AFTRA and the writers' strikers are doing, what's happening over there, the kind of action that's getting moved, or inaction, whatever. What better time, right? UPS just got a W doing their union thing. I know a bunch of their drivers got some stuff now, including AC in their cars. Huge win for UPS. Who knows what's possible? Like, doesn't seem like a bad thing to me, I don't think.
Yeah, this is part of what the ongoing writers and actors strike is hoping to do, to leverage their labor into power to make changes in the industry.
One more thing about changes in the industry before we move into Blue Beetle, because I know we're running long on news here. Movie theaters doing $4 ticket day this Sunday. Yeah, this Sunday. If you're listening to this show on the day it goes out, 22nd, August 27th, Sunday the 27th is National Cinema Day. Yay! We should probably do something for National Cinema Day. It's only the second one though, right? Like they're still getting off the ground.
Yeah, this is a new kind of manufactured holiday from a nonprofit organization called the Cinema Foundation. They started it last year to just try to raise awareness to go to see movies in the theater. And they had steeply discounted tickets last year, $4 tickets, $5 tickets. Huge hit. Everyone like went out in droves to the movies. They're doing it again, like I said, this Sunday. And it's supposed to be for any showtime and kind of any format. I doubt things like IMAX are going to be $4, but everything else. And to me, if you get the $4 like premium, because usually the premium times like 6, 7 p.m., those are usually the ones that they jack up the price a little bit more. So really cheap if you're going to go out this Sunday. And they're kind of re-releasing a few films. Like I saw that Lady Bird's going to, which is Greta Gerwig's 2017 film, that's going to get re-released. American Graffiti, Jurassic Park. The Little Mermaid sing along, as well as things that are more current, Barbie, Oppenheimer, the new Gran Turismo movie, etc., etc.
I think one of the things that's interesting about this, speaking of unionizing, is a bunch of different movie companies, like theater companies, coming together to run this promotion all together, which is crazy. Like AMC and Cinemark joining hands, right? Like Regal Cinema getting a piece. I don't believe it. Even some smaller ones jumping in on the National Cinema Day train. It's hard to believe, right? Like that these companies are so often competing are willing to join up, but it's for good reason. When they ran this last year, they saw 101% uptick of movie ticket sales over the weekend, which is crazy. They made $23.6 million last year when they did National Cinema Day. So now everybody wants a piece. Yeah, like older films that just came out are coming back into theaters for the weekend. Super Mario Bros. Movie. Disney's running Little Mermaid sing-along. I saw a couple places you can go see a couple like A24 features out again. Everybody wants a piece of National Cinema Day. And like, good, right? Why not? Why shouldn't we have a day when we all go to the movies? I don't know why it seems to have moved. Last year it was September 3rd. This year it's August 27th. I hope they settle on a day that's a little bit more memorable, right? Like, I don't know, Labor Day.
Yeah, last year it was over Labor Day. It's surprising that that's not this same day. But late August is a weird time because it's back to school, both, public school, college. People aren't going to the movies as much. It's a weird time to release stuff. Studios don't really want to release anything new because it's just people aren't going to the movies at this time. So this is a great time to have something like this where you just re-release stuff you already have or just came out. It's good incentive, and you're not dropping a new movie to an audience that isn't going to go.
$4 tickets. Take advantage. All right, this Sunday, get out and get after it. And hey, tell you what, if you're listening to this episode after Sunday and you're thinking, "Rats, I missed it," you can still go to the movies anyway, right? Like it's not that bad. The average ticket price is about $11 now, which is up a bit from 2019. Last time the National Association of Theater Owners recorded it, but movies aren't so bad right now. There's certainly some good stuff out in theaters, which is, I think, a fantastic segue. It's not fantastic, but it's a fine segue into talking about films this week. I'm going to be taking the summary on the first one. The movie is Blue Beetle. So Blue Beetle is the story of Jaime, who is a recently graduated student of Gotham National...
University.
I don't know. Gotham Thank you, Andy. Gotham University, who arrives back home to the Florida Keys to discover that things are not great with his family at home. Very loving family, very sweet cast of characters, including George Lopez as his goofy uncle. And when he tries to get a job at a local corporation, Corp, that's when he comes in contact with a mysterious blue scarab, this kind of artifact, almost alien kind of thing. That suddenly, without warning, grabs a hold of him and functionally possesses him and becomes a part of him and turns him into the Blue Beetle, a mighty superhero with all kinds of powers, almost a little Green Lantern-esque. You kind of cook up whatever you can imagine in your head. That has the ability to produce stuff and is adorned in this blue suit with these arms coming out the back. Almost kind of looks a little like a beetle. But of course, like any good superhero movie, it's not all sunshine and roses. And soon, that evil corporation is after the Blue Beetle. They want that scarab back. And Jaime has to use his wits and his new tech and, of course, the love of his family to figure it out. The movie is Blue Beetle. It is the DC Universe's first new feature, according to James Gunn. Excited to talk about it. Andy, what'd you think?
This was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't sure what to think going in because this was originally supposed to go straight to HBO Max. And then when David Zaslav took over as CEO, they wanted to really push for theatrical releases for their movies, not do straight to streaming films. And so this Blue Beetle got a buff and some money. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. You get stuff that looks highly polished and theatrical, and then you get some stuff that looks like TV movie. But the movie works better than I kind of anticipated. It has the family element is a big part. It's almost more like an ensemble piece. It's a lot funnier than I expected it to be. I'm not a big fan of George Lopez, but he made me laugh a number of times, so I had to give that to him. It's got some issues, but overall I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I liked it. I've liked it more since I've gotten away from it. I'm a little disappointed how it's doing at the box office, but I think I can explain why it's not doing so well. I think it made $43 million this opening weekend, which is not bad for it's not bad for any movie. But when your movie costs like $200 million to make before marketing, you got to turn out a bit more of a profit. Hopefully, it'll do better in international waters. But I think the things that work great about Blue Beetle are the hero. I think Blue Beetle is actually a lot of fun. Excited to talk about him. Much like I said, like a Green Lantern character, interesting set of powers, like interesting set of abilities. The cast is fun. Newcomer Solomar Marduena. I did real quick. A lot of pronunciations this episode. Andy and I were talking about it in the pre-show. I'm gonna struggle. I'm sorry in advance. I want to give credit where it's due though. Solomar Marduena is great. He's really funny, big charisma, very good at screaming. A lot of wailing from this kid, but like a good cinematic scream. Like he's on it. Along with our family is good. I like our setting. It's kind of futuristic Florida. Like there's these big towers and holograms and stuff. And like that's actually kind of neat. Like it's not just modern day. We're actually pushed forward a little bit. But the thing I don't like is that our story is so tragically wrote. If you have seen one superhero movie, you have seen this superhero movie. Like it's too paint by numbers. It's too safe. It's a shame. Like it's a director I'm not familiar with. It's a cast I'm not familiar with. It's a hero I'm not familiar with. They just stay in the lines a little too much, and it made it a little boring for me. But I want to talk about what works first. Andy, what do you think? Do we start with our cast? We start with our setting, our plot, our hero? Where do you want to go?
Let's get in with our cast. So Solomar Marduena plays Jaime Reyes, who's about post-college age. He's a lot of fun. He does the role. It's a good mix of like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm a superhero, and then also having to take on the responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. He's pretty funny. He's likable. I think he comes from Cobra Kai is his claim to fame, which I haven't really watched. But like I said, it's an ensemble piece, and the family, unlike Fast and Furious, the family element is actually really important. One of the plot elements is that the family is in danger of losing their home because of gentrification. And when Susan Sarandon's character comes after Jaime to get the scarab back, she ends up kind of doing a raid on their home, and tragedy ensues. But the family has to come together. So you have this funny cast of his sister Milagro, his Nana Reyes, Rudy, played by George Lopez. And they end up coming along for the adventure, and they have a bigger role than you would think. And they work a lot better than you might think they do. But it's part of the family element. Because he's young, he's unsure. The family helps him kind of find his purpose and confidence, and that works a lot better than I would think.
Yeah, the general silhouette, I think, for Jaime Reyes is a little Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? Like, young kid. He's just graduated college, just a few years ahead of Tom Holland, but, like figuring it out. But the difference, I think the biggest difference between him and Spider-Man is his family, right? Like his roots. And that's an important part of it. Like, they are all important cast. They're all pretty funny. George Lopez, he will deliver a line and you'll either roll your eyes or laugh at it, but like that's not a bad thing in a movie like this. So he's fine. Brutal hair extensions though. God, it's terrible in this movie. they did Rudy so dirty, man. Like, my God. I think was not a big fan of our villains. It's kind of big faceless corporation. Susan Sarandon heads up the company, who is not probably who you think of when you think of like
Cord
a traditional
Industries.
super villain. You would not think of Susan Sarandon up front. She has a fine job of being dramatic. I think part of what works so well is she's conniving. She's got a smaller frame. She's placed opposite Raul Max Trujillo, who plays this kind of henchman for her. Kind of this big bodyguard guy, and she tells him what to do, and he's so much big, he towers over her, over Jaime too, and she kind of runs the show up until, of course, we start talking about super suits, and then suddenly we've got a power dynamic. But ultimately, I think Cord is just a little flat. I think maybe I would have been more interested if they were dealing with LexCorp or something, something that's got a bit of a hook to it. And Cord Corporation does, actually. It's based on Ted Cord, who is the original Blue Beetle. As you told me in the movie, right when it was starting, hey, Ted Cord's the OG Blue Beetle. I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. And then it turns out he is actually a part of the world that's baked in. And the subtext of that, along with, I think, subtext of a lot of the film, is part of what keeps it interesting. The movie does not start with a text crawl that says it's the future. We're in Florida. There's this thing. It doesn't do any of that. You just get it all through like scene transition. At one point, we see like a flyover of like the Florida Keys, and you're like, oh, it's like really built out and like nice. Okay, so we're not in like modern present day. And then at another point, you see Jaime wearing a hoodie that says Gotham Central on the back. And you're like, oh, he went to school in Gotham. That's where Batman is. But it doesn't like force feed it to you. You wouldn't even notice that stuff if you weren't looking for it. So it's good at sprinkling little comic book lore, some engagement for fans, and also a good quality helping of what's the best way to say this? I don't know. Cultural matter. Jaime has to clarify like 4 times in the movie that his name is not Jamie. It's Jaime. And like as somebody who watches that movie, when I read about this movie, I definitely read his name is Jamie, and now that I've seen it, I will never pronounce it that way because his character so obviously is not that person. And like that feels really sincere. That feels like a really good way to hang on to like a bit of like culture that like I would not pick up on as somebody who's not Latina. So shout out to them. Like that felt great.
Yeah, the cultural element's a huge part of this. It incorporates Spanish, Hispanic culture a lot. A lot of this movie is in Spanish. A lot of it does not have subtitles. You just kind of you get what's going on based on how characters are talking to each other. And if you do speak Spanish, you're going to get in on a lot. There's a lot of in jokes. There's a lot of just cultural references. You're going to get a little bit more. I also wanted to mention, when we're talking about cast, Jenny Cord, who's played by Bruna Marquezine. She's the daughter of the lost Ted Cord, and she's like heir to the throne of Cord Industries. She also kind of becomes a sidekick. She's kind of a weak paint by number character. That's the part of this movie that works the least. Our villain kind of character, and she's not a villain, but she's kind of thrown in the mix as well. That's probably the weakest part of the movie. Are like I said, the villain arc, the antagonist.
Yes, yeah. Kind of all of your evil in the film is a little two-tone, like little flat, not that interesting. Additionally, I think a lot of times the movie trades comedy for what would otherwise be something like horror. The Blue Beetle transformation scene, when Jaime first gets grabbed by this thing, is like horrifying. Like he like his like skin is being melted off. Like it's wild how good the CGI is for it. I was really impressed. Like, oh god, like it's like something you see at like Keanu Reeves' Constantine. Like he's like thrown up against the ceiling, or like Exorcist. And his family is like wailing like he's got a bug on him. It's so it's so misplaced. And the family sometimes is taken really seriously and really sincere, and other times they're like dumb as a box of rocks. And I think it works a lot for the comedy, but it makes a lot of the home stuff feel flat. Like when things are getting serious for Jaime, and he's like, hey, I gotta fly to the other side of the world and go do some justice, right? Like I'm the Blue Beetle. They're like, don't forget your lunch. Like, you know, like I don't like I don't expect it to be real serious, but just like it felt like it couldn't pick like one way or another. Like the script was fighting the screenplay or something, and it ends up leading to a lot of George Lopez eye roll moments, but mostly good. I think. Yeah, my largest issues with the movie are just that it's just a little too paint by numbers. Like if you could guess this plot, like if you've seen a few superhero movies, it's not very complicated, and I think that leads to people not buying tickets, which sucks. Like, and that leads to people not going to see it, and then people writing off Blue Beetle as a hero. I like Blue Beetle. I like Blue Beetle. I like Jaime. I want to see more of this story. I hope they get more. We got to see how it does at the box office, I guess.
Right. So that's a big question: is how does this play into the larger DCEU? This is again part of the old guard of the Walter Hamada films that were greenlit before James Gunn came over. James Gunn has inherited this film and one more, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. He's got to see those through before he kind of officially takes over. So luckily, this movie kind of stands on its own. It doesn't tie into any kind of larger universe. You could do more movies just to Blue Beetle, or you could use this as an origin story and put him in future films. We don't really know what they're going to do, but I do like the flexibility of not trying to like force him into the larger universe, and that I think that makes it more flexible for you to reuse the character.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to them reusing him. Like I said, I think it's good. James Gunn came out and said, "Hey, we're going to be using this property going forward. The cast is good. New kid's great. Blue Beetle's a fun hero. Like I look forward to seeing a Blue Beetle 2 or doing the Marvel thing and having him just show up in another movie, right? Have him join the Justice Society of America or something. Like that'd be rad. Like I would love to see Blue Beetle like just show up as a part of like a hero squad, or when somebody needs help. Oh, who are we gonna call? And then like Blue Beetle comes out of the woodwork. I'd be like, hell yeah, man, love Blue Beetle. Like that's great. Like solid. Just boy, for 2 hours, it ends up feeling long. Like it's a shame. I wish I didn't feel that way. I think they played it too safe, which is probably not a bad move in the environment of superhero movies. But boy, if you suffer superhero fatigue, I think you're gonna feel it when you're watching Blue Beetle, because that's where I started to feel it. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I'm jaded. Maybe it's Maybelline. Andy, any other thoughts before recommendations?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Blue Beetle?
I would, but I would say save it for streaming. Unfortunately, it lacks the total polish of a theatrical film. You know, it was originally intended for HBO Max, and like I said, some of it is really highly polished, and a lot of it is not. I think for most people, unless you're a diehard comic book fan, you're fine just waiting till it's available on stream. And it hasn't had a great box office start, so it'll probably be available pretty soon. But that said, I did enjoy it. I did have fun. I would rewatch this like over something like The Flash or Quantumania. I'm excited to see where they can take this character, where they might put him in future films. So I would say recommend, but save it for streaming.
I think I'm in the same boat. I like this movie just fine. I just wish it was like a half hour shorter. And by God, if I could have any one change, I'd say flip the plot around. Like do something a bit more interesting. I kept thinking when I was watching this, like, number one, I feel like I've just seen this story one too many times. And number two, I kept thinking how interesting the origin story for Tony Stark is in Iron Man. Like, weapons manufacturer CEO is overseas testing weapons for the army when he's attacked by terrorists, put in a cave and forced to design a weapon of mass destruction for them. And then he turns it around and just interesting and complex and different, right? And that was a long time ago. We were watching Iron Man, and now we're here watching Blue Beetle, and it just feels too rote. Like, just feels too together. It bums me out. I think Blue Beetle 2 or whatever they do next will not have that problem. I think they're going to learn from this. Like, going forward, I like where we're at. I like Blue Beetle. Would recommend. Just save it for streaming. Yeah, and if you get bored, whatever, like, throw a little laundry in, you'll be fine. Overall, Blue Beetle, thumbs up. Not bad time at the movies. But when we talk about the movies, there's some exciting things always coming around the corner, always new things coming out. So this week we're excited to talk about some new trailers, some upcoming things. Andy, what do we call this?
It's time for the trailer park.
So oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so our first film we're going to be doing through, our first film is called Maestro, and this is the biopic of musician conductor Leonard Bernstein, who was a conductor of the New York Philharmonic, and also wrote he wrote the music to West Side Story. Some of these, he's a hallmark American figure. His biopic is being both directed and starring Bradley Cooper. This has been a passion project of his for several years. He's really wanted to do this. We see this trailer open with him and his wife, played by Carey Mulligan, and kind of a montage through the years. It has a very classic look. Like, it reminded me of things like Citizen Kane, like those 1940s black and white movies. A lot, like, some of it's in color, some of it's in black and white. It has a very kind of nostalgia look to it. I'm intrigued, and as a musician, I'm definitely excited for this.
Yeah, I think Maestro looks like good stuff. For a while I was curious about this movie because this is Bradley Cooper's project after A Star is Born. And I thought, okay, well, whatever he does next, it's going to get greenlit and immediately get attention. Not only did that movie get nominated for a handful of Academy Awards, the song got catapulted to like the Billboard Top 100. Lady Gaga had a lot of success off of it. Like, I thought, okay, whatever Cooper's doing next is going to be an immediate hit. And he made this, and it hung out in limbo for a while. Like, nobody jumped on the script, which is weird. And I remember talking about it on the show a while ago, and then like months and months ago, and just being like, what's going on with Maestro? Like, why is nobody touching this? It has had some odd PR since it came out regarding prosthetics. I don't know if it's worth talking about on the show because it seems to have already blown over, but I don't know why this movie took a while to get picked up, but it's here now. Netflix has it. I think it's a great get for Netflix. It looks like a good movie. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with the story of Liberace, Leonard Bernstein. So like maybe it'll be great. We'll see.
What's crazy is when I was in graduate school and my teacher Sam Palafian personally knew Leonard Bernstein and would like refer to him as Lenny, and he had all these crazy stories of like, cause he played with him at the New York Philharmonic and like helped him write music and things like that. So it's an amazing character, and it's interesting to see him brought to life.
Yeah, our next film that we need to talk about is this trailer for a movie called Anatomy of a Fall. This is from Justin Triet. I've never seen anything from this individual. This film is Swedish, I think.
French.
It's French. Oh my gosh. A woman is suspected of her husband's murder, and their blind son faces a moral dilemma as their sole witness. It's a bit of a simple trailer. Woman goes on a walk, comes home. Her husband has taken a spill out of their balcony and is dead in their driveway. She's horrified, calls the cops, and suddenly she's suspect number one, right? It's a story you might have heard the setup for before, but it looks interesting because it looks dramatic, right? And it's a foreign film. I don't know anybody in it, and it looks like something new from a director I've never seen. I think it's exciting. What do you think of Anatomy of a Fall?
So this was the Palme d'Or winner at the Cannes Film Festival, which is the top prize there.
That would have been the thing for me to open with when I started my brief summary. Yes.
Yeah, it's that's the only reason we're talking about it is it's a big deal. We've heard lots of Oscar buzz, especially for the lead actress Sandra Hüller, who was also in another film that's been getting a lot of buzz called Zone of Interest, which we haven't seen any trailers or anything yet. It's a Holocaust film. We'll be talking about that later in the year, but she's in these two films. This looks really incredible. Like it's a whodunit. It's a courtroom drama. There's probably going to be lots of other layers about what it's really about. Man, it looks really good. Looks exciting to me. And yeah, I'm definitely excited to see this. Comes out mid October.
Excited to see it too. This feels like one of those joints that'll get nominated for an Oscar, and everybody will look at it like, what's that movie? I've never heard of it. And we'll be over here like, we know, we saw it. We'll cover it on the show. Don't worry. Next
up is Rebel Moon, which is the new big space epic from director Zack Snyder. Infamous, famous at this point. This is from Netflix. I've heard a lot of buzz about this. This movie kind of looks like a whole lot of sci-fi fantasy stuff that you've seen before. It looks like a mixture of Dune and Star Wars and Game of Thrones. We don't really get a whole lot of plot outside of there's this kind of wonder child, the chosen one, played by Sofia Boutella, who's going to liberate who knows what. We get a lot of battle scenes, people in space, people in weird uniforms. This is part one of two, and this comes out on December 22nd on Netflix. I'll probably watch this since it's on Netflix, but it's kind of all over the place.
It reminds me a lot of the Sucker Punch trailer, right? Like just all visuals and vibes. That's the whole thing. You watch it and you're like, I don't know what's happening, but it looks like there's a lot going on. We're on snow planet, we're on desert planet, lava planet, like who knows where we're at. This may all even be the same planet. I don't even know. There's a bunch of characters, there's fighting, there's stunts, there's a train heist, there's a gunfight, like all kinds of stuff. Snyder is very good at making epic stuff, right? And making it look epic. And I totally get it. But I was a little bummed with Army of the Dead. I didn't think a lot of that movie. I know a lot of people did. A lot of people were really warm on it, but it just felt really flat and dry. So I'm hoping this feels like it's got a bit more juice. Interestingly, also, as Andy pointed out, this is a double feature. There's two of these, right? That's the deal.
Yeah. Part one is December 22nd. Part two, The Scar Giver, which is actually a good title, April 19th. So just 4 months apart.
Yeah. I should say, full disclosure, the first time I saw this trailer on Twitter, earlier today when it dropped, I made it about halfway through watching it before I yawned and kept scrolling, which is terrible. I should probably watch the whole trailer, right? But like, there's something about it. It does look a little, I don't know, it reminds me of like The Mandalorian, Dune, Star Wars, right? Like it just looks a little samey, and I hope it isn't. I hope it's something new because I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know if they're like shooting in the volume like what Disney uses or what it is. If it's just all the CGI, like I'm just I don't know. I feel like I've seen so many like epic space features that have ended up washing out. So hopefully this is something really special. And if it's like anything Snyder does, I'm sure it will be. With that, we need to talk about our next movie, and then we got another movie after that. That bonus review is really haunting me, Andy. I shouldn't have committed to it, but it's fine. We'll get to it. First off, what's our next
too
film?
far.
I know.
Oldboy. So we actually reviewed this on the show over 100 episodes ago, but this year is the 20th anniversary re-release of Park Chan-wook's masterpiece, Oldboy, which I don't know how much spoilers we're gonna do because it is old, but it stars Choi Min-sik as Odesu, who we meet early on in a police station where he's raving drunk, he's out of control. A friend picks him up, and in a dark and stormy night, he is kidnapped out of nowhere and put in this hotel room where he is to stay. He's doomed to stay for the next 15 years. He is never told why he was imprisoned, and then he is mysteriously let go after 15 years, and he is not told why he has been let go. And so he has to spend the next he has 5 days to figure out who imprisoned him, and more importantly, why they imprisoned him. He also runs into this ingenue named Mito, who helps him on his quest. This movie's about revenge, about vengeance, also about isolation and loneliness. And this was the film that turned me on to Korean cinema way back in 2003, 2004, long before Parasite came around. I like to be that guy like I was into Korean cinema before Parasite. But this was the one. I mean, it's an incredible mystery. It's also incredibly violent. This was during this move. They call it the Asia Extreme movement, where there was this really extreme violence in a lot of Asian cinema, way more than what we get in the U.S. Incredible masterpiece. So we're going to talk about it. We went to see it in the theater at Alamo Drafthouse, which I've never seen this in the theater. Incredible to see it on the big screen. Zach, what's your take? Because this is only your second time seeing it.
Yeah, second time seeing Oldboy. I'm very pleased to say I like it more on second rewatch, and I already liked it plenty the first time. Yeah, we talked about it way back on episode 105, which is crazy. I've already been over 100 episodes away from that now. But first time through, Oldboy is a little confusing. I wouldn't quite hold it up to something like Primer, but like if you're not paying attention, if you get up and leave your seat for 10 minutes, you're gonna miss something in Oldboy. Like there's a lot of intricate details as our lead is trying to uncover this mystery of who captured him and why has he been locked away and why is he suddenly free now, and ultimately not only who did it but why. Like that, and that's one of the things that really stood out to me on rewatch. Like there's right in Act 2. Our hero finds the villain, and the villain says, no, you haven't figured it all out yet, though. Like that's the fun part. And I love the way the movie pulls you in with that, right? Yeah, like it's not just about finding the person who did this to you. It's finding out why, and why you, and why 15 years, and why did they let you go, and why did they let you fight? Like fascinating, and it all leads to like this incredibly vivid climax that is so gripping. Like, just you can't look away. Like, the you could hear a pin drop in the movie theater. It's so quiet. Nobody's getting up and going to the bathroom. Everybody's glued to the screen for the third act of Oldboy. And it's so interesting. Like, it's a movie that just comes way out of left field. Like, the closest thing I think I could compare it to is something like a Saw movie, but like one of the early good ones, like not one of the later ones where it's like torture porn, like probably like the first one where it's like, why are these people locked in this room? What's happening? A whodunit where you're like captivated by the setting almost more so than like the reason. Fascinating movie. And I'm excited to talk about it again. Yeah, I know we've talked about it before. I don't think we need to talk about spoilers, right? Like, we could, but like,
fair enough. I think one of the things that grabs me is that the mystery is so good, and you get clues that get closer, but a lot of times a new clue will cause more questions than raise more questions than it answers, and it just gets more and more complex all the way up almost to the very end. And that's something that I think is really hard for a film to do, is to kind of continuing to ramp up tension and to ramp up the questions and to ramp up the complexity of the mystery. And the pacing is so good because the first act is so good. And this is the thing I pay attention a lot to, because a lot of times first acts can be kind of lame because they're trying to set everything up. But that's where he's in prison and you get this great montage of him kind of training, of him surviving in this hotel room for a long time. And it's almost as good as a lot of films' second acts, but the pacing works so good. But the mystery, I'm talking about everything right now, but the mystery is it just does such a good job of keeping you hooked the entire time.
Yeah. I was also really interested in a lot of the small details that come out of the 4K remaster. The remaster looks great, by the way, I should say. If you have the opportunity to see it, you should. If not, I'm sure it'll be coming to streaming or something. You should absolutely check it out. Pulling trailer footage for this to just kind of put in front of the video version of the show, it is hard to find good footage that looks good of Oldboy, because it's a movie from 2003. Like, the best I could find was like a fan cam trailer somebody made in 720p with like Marilyn Manson music on top of it. And then there's like the one 4K remaster trailer that's out, and like it looks brilliant. Like, man, the colors are vibrant. You can see, like, even with the film grain on it, like you just see so much more going on. In fact, a lot of the sets really popped out this time. A lot of the simple patterns, right? The purple umbrella, like a lot of that stuff really has more volume in the 4K. And you notice like a lot more, I don't know, smaller things. Like, you notice the way like Odaisu's like needle pushes through his skin when he starts tattooing himself. And you notice a lot of the CGI, which I had not noticed previously at all. Like, I couldn't believe how much more CGI I noticed in the movie. When he starts having visions of ants crawling out of his skin, which sounds really graphic, but in the 4K you can actually see like it's a full CGI arm shot. I figured it was a prop arm or like his real arm, and they'd be like, no. Or like when he's trying to get out and he just manages to poke a chopstick through like the exterior wall brick, and like the brick falls out in the rain, like light comes through, like CGI. The rain's real, but like at the time in the older version I didn't know. It just looked practical, looked great. Like, it goes to show like just how well put together this movie was for 2003, that they could hide tricks like that, like hide the illusion of the movie making in there. And it's kind of a delight to see now, right? You can see it's like a stop motion movie. You can kind of see how it was made. You see the imperfections a little bit, and like I think that makes it a really good experience for somebody revisiting it.
Yeah, it's. Sorry, there's so much. There's so much to say. The effects. I think the effects age mostly pretty well. There are some kind of weird CGI or background shots that you can see the seams more. But like I said, you're so engrossed in the story and our characters that you don't care about the flaws. I wanted to kind of talk about our other main character, our villain, Lee Woo-jin, who's played by Yuji Tae. And we meet him about halfway through the film, and we realize that like you have found the man, but you have not found the reason. And there's all these conundrums where he said, "Well, you can kill me now, but you'll never find out why you were imprisoned." And he's kind of like Batman and the Joker. Like Lee Woo-jin is pulling all the strings. Every time you think you're a step ahead, he's been a step ahead of you the whole time. And every time you do something, he wanted you to do it, and he wanted you to find this thing that connects to that. And it's some real pro planning Joker level of string pulling, but he's also very sympathetic. You don't ever think what he did to Odaisu is right, but you empathize him, because again, one of the big themes is loneliness. It's personified mostly by Odaisu being trapped and imprisoned for 15 years. That's the most kind of obvious one, but Lee Woo-jin is also incredibly lonely, and what he does is he watches Odaisu for these 15 years. He watches him be trapped, and it's kind of what entertains him. He's not real sure what to do once he's set him free. Yeah,
like our villain reminded me this time, now having seen it, he reminded me of Robert Pattinson's Neil in Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Right? Like, incredibly well-dressed individual, mysterious, but tall, dark, handsome, always seemingly ahead of the curve. Yes. And like, he plays that character really well. He's humble. When he laughs, you can't tell if it's a real laugh or not. Like, he seems kind of inauthentic. but ultimately like a very flawed individual. He's got a lot of problems, and he is not normal by any means. He's an incredibly twisted person. And I like this kind of central theme that Odesu says a few times. He says, even if I'm a beast, should I not be allowed to live? Sounds a little strange, but it really extends not only to our villain, but also to our hero. I forgot that Oldboy opens on a flashback. It opens on Odesu getting arrested for being drunk, right? Like, and he's a normal citizen. And when his buddy goes and pays his bail and gets him out, or I don't know, however that works in a country I don't live in, whatever. He goes and talks on the phone to his payphone to his daughter. Hey, I'm coming home. His friend hops on the phone a minute. Camera pulls back. He's gone. He's missing, and then boom, we're in the room. He's been kidnapped. And I forgot like how much of a terror Odesu is in that opening scene. Like he's such a dick. He's drunk and he's on the floor kicking around and screaming, and other guys are like, this guy, like he's such a mess. And later in the movie, he's so like he's unleashed and he's vicious. But there's still a little bit of that in him. And he says, a few points that like, is the old me still there, or is it gone? And it's interesting. It's interesting how this film like manages to hold up a lens in between like the past and the future, the old and the new, right? To say like what does it mean to be something then versus something now? Is it different or is it the same? It's got a lot to say about like a person's past and what that means for who they are now and whether or not they can change or if they even should. And all that comes out on round 2, I think, when you get a little bit more time to step back from like trying to just pick up the plot as it goes, and like what's going on and figure out the mystery, to really simmer and really just soak in the flavors, of what Oldboy's presenting. So much of it plays better, I think, on second rewatch. Might be better for round 2 than round 1, I think.
Yeah, like I said, the mystery is really pretty complicated, and there's a lot of complicated. There's a lot said in dialogue. There's a lot of names to remember, and like they're Korean names, so they may not be very familiar. But this reminds me of the. I want to get into the action, but also, Odesu is not. When we meet him, he's not a good man. He's super drunk. It turns out he's a womanizer. He has a wife and kid. But that has nothing to do with why he's been in prison, which is so fascinating because you want to. He is searching through his whole life. Who have I wronged? Who is upset with me? And even though he's not really a good man, a good person, that's not has nothing to do with why he's in prison. But it kind of feels like maybe he does deserve it in a way. But I wanted to get into the action. That was one of the big things about this movie is. Really incredible action, very visceral. This famous long shot in the hallway, big long action scene. It's like 3 minutes. Took several days to film. But we get really brutal action. Odesu he kind of learns to fight on his own when he's trapped in the hotel room. He watches TV, he watches boxers, he watches fighters. He kind of trains himself, exercises a lot, and then when he gets out, he's like ready to fight. And there's a great scene where he said, it does 15 years of imaginary training like actually mean anything? And it turns out it does. And he goes on this brutal rampage to get information. That's part of how he's working his way up through the mystery. One of the famous scenes is where he's pulling someone's teeth out with a hammer, and it does not shy away. It's very graphic, shows you all of it. And that's just the start of all the carnage in Act 2. Which is even ramped up even more in Act 3.
I was really charmed by this post-show interview that they ran. We saw this at Alamo Drafthouse, and there's an interview that Park Chan-Wook did with Nicholas Winding Refn, director of Drive and Only God Forgives and Neon Demon. It's definitely part of a press junket. I saw another interview with Park Chan-Wook for Letterboxd, and he's sitting in the exact same setting and lighting and clothes. So like it was definitely just a one-day thing when he sat down and did interviews with people. But regardless, they spent about 10 minutes on Oldboy talking about it and where it came from and how it's different from the original manga. And one of the things I thought was really fascinating regarding that long take action sequence is that Park Chan-Wook explained he hates shooting action. He was like, it's way too much coverage. It takes forever to shoot it. I don't like doing it, you know? And he wanted Oldboy to be bigger and more bombastic and like big editing and big motion and big gore and big nudity, big violence. Like he wanted all of that in Oldboy because his previous film, what is it, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance? Goodbye,
Yeah.
Mr. Vengeance? Did not have those things. It was much simpler and much more down to earth. And it's funny, I think a lot of Park Chan-wook's work now is in that vein. It's smaller, but Oldboy, he wanted to really step on the gas and go further. And I think part of the reason like some of that violence is so visceral and they just show it all is because he just didn't want to shoot cutaways. He was like, whatever, like I don't care. Like we'll just do the damn thing, you know? Like just put it on screen. Teeth. It's fine. Yeah, it makes it feel really like it's got a really sharp edge, you know, like, and it makes it feel like it's coming from a place of like genuine, not frustration, but yeah, like it's coming from a director who's younger and he's hungry and he's like, I want to do some hard stuff. It reminds me of like Spielberg making Temple of Doom, like making like dark, twisted stuff that like I don't even know if he's ever really gone back to. I haven't seen all of his filmography, but I feel like Oldboy's got to be one of the more violent of his work, right? I mean, my God, like there's a lot. Well, this was not to mention, of course, just kind of the twisted nature of the plot.
Well, it's interesting because Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance has, like, it might be less violent, but it's still incredibly violent. Like, again, it was part of a whole movement of films in that era, that mid to late 2000s, where they were taking the violence to extreme. The third film in this anthology trilogy, Lady Vengeance, is equally as violent as this one. It's not really any less. So it was a whole movement that all the Korean directors were kind of doing it at the Takashi Miike was doing it as well. I can never remember his big film that kind of came out at the time. He had a couple that were in that vein, probably even more violent than this one. But it's definitely, everything in that era was, man, it was going over the top. And it's interesting that he said that about the first film, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, because it is, I remember it being equally as violent or just incredibly violent.
Yeah. Overall, like I think Oldboy is a great watch the first time. But yeah, like I said, I'm charmed by how much I enjoyed it on round two. There was a little part of me that was like, okay, you're seeing a movie you've seen before, right? It's 2 hours. You got to drive over to the theater and drive back. Like there's a little part of you that's like, you know, I'm seeing the same thing again. But the best art is the kind of art you can revisit time and time again, and every time you walk away feeling different. Every time you walk away being a little bit of a different person. And every time you think, God, how did I not see it this way before? Right? Like that's the best art in the world to me. And like I can say very confidently, Oldboy is one of those features. Like it's just there's just something new to it. Like there's a new shine, and the 4K like does a great job bringing that out. Fantastic work all around. A solid remaster. Overall, I was really pleased with watching it again. Andy, any other thoughts?
Last thing I want to touch on is the score. Love the score to this film. It's a big part of music cues, certain musical sounds kind of trigger things in the film, in people in the film. It's kind of like hypnosis is a big thing in it. Incredible score. It's part of my very long playlist of film scores. It's a mixture of like synthetic keyboard sounds as well as in-person orchestras. One of my favorite parts of the movie is the score.
Yeah, the score's rock solid. And also, we were talking about after the movie whether or not Alamo just plays their films loud. But for what it's worth, like I really like the level, the volume, I should say, the score was coming out of this. I'm hoping that's just what's attached to the film, like, and that's just how loud it is if you buy the Blu-ray or whatever, because it sounds great. I definitely will probably, inevitably, this will come to physical media. I think I might have to scoop up a copy of the 4K Oldboy. It's really good stuff.
Yeah,
anyway,
I will
that,
too. So,
yeah.
Last thing, I have the DVD of this. I still, as any proud cinephile would say, the subtitles are a little bit different in this version. I just noticed some small changes, mostly for just translate. I'm probably translated better or trying to get translations across a little bit, but they are just slightly different enough for me to notice. That was interesting to see.
That was interesting. I was surprised when you pointed that out. You're like, actually slightly different translations. It's like, that's unique. So yeah, a little something for everybody, even if you're like a hardcore, got the DVD fan. Andy, would you recommend Oldboy?
Absolutely, with huge content warnings. It's an extremely violent film. Deals with themes of revenge, vengeance, loneliness, isolation, all those things. It is a classic of the genre. It's the film that catapulted Park Chan-wook into international kind of renown. He had found success with his an earlier film called Justice Security Academy, something like that. But that made him a big name in South Korea. Oldboy made him a big name all over the world in film circles. So, highly recommend. Big favorite. Catch it in theaters if you can, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Oldboy's a delight. I think you should totally watch it if you have the ability to watch it in theater. Joint Security Area. That was his movie that put him on the map, which I also haven't seen. We should probably check that out. But yeah, Oldboy's great. Like we talked about on the show before, we've talked about it since. We might even be covering the 30th, right? We'll see where we're at in a decade. But for what it's worth, like Oldboy's great. If you're a fan, please go see it in theaters. Do your best to go see it in theaters if possible, and if not, keep an eye out for wherever it comes out. The 4K looks great. It's a great looking remaster. Very pleased with it. Yeah, Oldboy, thumbs up. 2 thumbs up all around. Solid off script seal of approval. I should put that right there on the 4K UHD. One more movie to talk about before we wrap up the show this week. I know we're running a little long on time, but I watched this just last weekend, and I wanted to talk about it. I've seen some buzz about it online. Andy has not seen it, but I'm going to do my best to explain what it is. The movie is Amazon Prime, Red, White, and Royal Blue. So, Red, White, and Royal Blue is the story of Alex Claremont Diaz. He's the first son of the President of the United States. Very exciting. First son, all right? Like, he's basically American royalty. And Alex has a small but budding rivalry with a Prince of England, Henry. So, son of the President, son of, I think it's the King. And yeah, it's the King in this movie. Henry, they both don't really like each other. But then at a social gathering, the two of them accidentally have a bit of a run-in, bit of a fight. Alex gets a little tipsy and tells him, I don't like you. The two of them get in a fight and they end up having this whole cake spill on him. Everybody sees it. It's a huge PR scandal all over the world, right? Like son of the U.S. president, son of the king are fighting. The two of them have to go on a couple week PR junket to try to be like, no, we're cool. We hang out, we're great. Things are good. It was funny that happened. It was intentional. Try to kind of shape it around being cool. But then on the road, they suddenly start to figure out that they're actually pretty cool with one another. They're actually pretty neat when they get to know each other. And then surprise, they're super cool with each other and they start a relationship. They're gay. Gay boys. I don't believe it, right? A prominently gay story. It reminds me of Bros when we covered that on the show, right? Not the kind of thing we see often. And Red, White, and Blue gets surprisingly spicy. Not Red, White, and Royal Blue. Not as spicy as I figured it would. I thought I was going to be getting Game of Thrones level nudity. Not quite. You do see a couple of butts, but otherwise, these two guys are surprisingly charming. Yeah. No shaft, lots of butts. It is what it is. Not even lots, but our two leads, Taylor Zakar Perez and Nicholas Galitzine, are a delight. We're gonna get to see them more, especially Nicholas Galitzine in Bottoms, which comes out this Friday in select theaters. I'm hoping we can watch it for the show, Andy. That's that kind of indie comedy
Sennett,
starring Rachel Sennett, and Ayo Edebiri from The Bear and TMNT. She's the new April O'Neil. The two of them play high schoolers who start a fight club. They're gay high schoolers who start a fight club, and Nicholas Galitzine is a very American football jock in that movie. And in this movie, he's a Prince of England, thick accent. Seems to play both really well. He's been getting some attention, so excited to see what he is. But Red, White, and Royal Blue, that is the movie based on the book. Andy didn't see it, so I should give Andy an opportunity to, jump in and ask something, or let me breathe a second, and I can figure out what we're talking about next. Andy, what do you think so far? Are you on board?
So I had heard a little bit about this. Coworker was actually talking to me, and this is based on a novel or a written work of some sort, and there's been. It's a good adaptation, but it's not a great adaptation from what I've heard. There's just a lot of nuance kind of left out because sometimes you have to cut for time. But overall, it has been. I think fans of the book are happy with it.
So I'm gonna say it's definitely based on a book. My beau Christine loves that book, by the way. She's got a few copies of it. She'll tell you all about it if you ask her. So she was excited for the movie. That was the reason I ended up watching it. And at first I was like, man, 2 hours long. Okay, like this is this is gonna be a little rough. But I can say confidently, while I don't think Red, White, and Royal Blue is necessarily like cinematic in its presentation, it falls perfectly in line with any like Hallmark romance or Netflix holiday romance you've seen. It like skewers that medium perfect. It reminded me of a lot of those cheesy Netflix Hollywood features like God, I can't, now that I'm here, I can't even remember the name of them. There's a couple of them. There's like a night for a prince and a queen and Snow Queen. And I'll remember after the movie and after the show and kick myself for not saying them. But it's definitely like made for TV, but in the best way. It's charming and it's light. Like, yeah, it's a lot of sets, a lot of softbox lighting, but surprisingly witty script. Casey McQuiston, the writer, helped put together the film, which is always, I think, a lift. If you're writing a film based on a book, she kind of helped adapt it. And from what I understand, it's a pretty solid adaptation. Nary a few kind of interesting things. But I did want to talk a minute about our cast. Taylor Zakar Perez as Alex and Nicholas Galizian as Henry are really great. I've never seen either of them in anything. They're both really great. I'm looking forward to seeing them in more. I was watching this and thinking, who are you going to be in the Marvel universe? Who are you going to get? Who are you two going to get scooped up as?
Right.
Because you're both going to go on to do other things, I would imagine. Like both really solid. Alex actually is like a bit of a firecracker, not very well buttoned up, but passionate. He's political and actually gets involved doing politics in Texas, a la Beto O'Rourke. If you're a Texan, he looks a lot like him. In the movie, he's got like the button up with the sleeves rolled up and the one button down, like he's doing his thing, campaigning or whatever. He is a first timer, never actually been in a gay relationship. Whereas Henry, of course, who's very buttoned up and very posh and very prim and very proper, has been in a gay relationship before and kind of explains how things work, and they end up doing their own thing. But what's interesting is both of them end up coming out to their respective parents. Alex coming out to his presidential mom, I should say. The president's a woman in this one. Oh, snap. Who's played by Uma Thurman, who I have not seen in a movie in a really long time, especially outside of a Tarantino production. She's got this like buttery southern drawl accent that didn't really work for me, but has been getting a lot of praise online from fans. Like they're like, oh my God, Uma Thurman's great. All right. Yeah, you guys got it. What do I know? He comes out to her and she's like, really? Oh, that's wild. Okay, cool. Well, be your own person, be safe. Do we need to talk about condoms, right? Like, meanwhile, Henry is like, absolutely cannot be gay. He's a Prince of England, right? Like, that is not an option. He is royalty, and this is his whole life, and that's what everything is. So you do get some good something in the third act. I actually like that the movie kind of steps off of Alex being the subject in Act 3 and really steps onto Henry. It gives the relationship something robust. But I'm also satisfied to say not only has this movie done well on Amazon Prime, but the director said they wanted to do more. I think Casey McQuiston wants to do more. She just did this AMA on Reddit where she talked a bunch about what she wants to do with the characters. Like, it seems like there will likely be more from this because it's been really successful. And I'm pleased to say, like, that's not just because it's a whimsical story. It's because it's, like, functionally a fun project. It's not big cinematic. Like I said, it wouldn't play good in a theater. But, like, on a streamer, it, like, rock solid. Like, they knew exactly what they were aiming for. They shot their target and landed it. Really comes out great. I was really pleased with it. I do want to talk a little bit about kind of the script and kind of the acting. But, Andy, any thoughts before I jump into it? I know I got to wrap this up.
Well, I was just going to say, kind of broad question. What works the best about this movie and what kind of works the least?
So I think the thing that works the best is our two leads. At the open, I would not think these two are going to be capable of carrying a compelling relationship. Dude, they totally do. Like, it's bananas how good they are at it. I'm not even sure if either of them are really gay, like, because they just fall so well into their characters. Maybe they both are. Maybe only one of them is. I couldn't even tell you. I don't know a lot about the men, but what I do know is that the two of them are like shockingly convincing. in their empathy for one another. Like the plot's real cheesy when you just say it at the top, right? Like the elevator pitch for this movie. Two people that are basically royalty, don't like each other, but they fall for one another, but they're star-crossed lovers and they can't be together, right? Sounds like Romeo and Juliet. But what works is it's surprisingly progressive. Well, I shouldn't say surprisingly. It's very progressive. And it's a good script. Like the dialogue's really bouncy, comes right out of the book. When they don't like each other in Act 1, it is like dripping with sarcasm and they can't stand one another. Then in Act 2, they kind of warm up and realize, okay, this is the reason we didn't like each other. Now I get it. And in Act 3, they're like really great. And as people start to figure it out in the administration, like Secret Service, like sees the two of these guys like running into a room together and they don't say anything, just stand there with sunglasses. And then like when the president's like top advisor, played by, God, what is her name? Sarah Shahi. She's great. She plays Zara. She figures it out. She has like she has meltdown. She ends up like storming into Alex's room one morning when he's supposed to be at a press junket. And she's like, I heard a girl in here. Where is she? Where is she hiding? And she like opens up the closet and there's the Prince of England in his boxers. And she's like, oh my God. This is the worst thing that ever happened in the whole world. Like really a delight, like really funny, like surprisingly well put together for what's here. Like I feel like it would have been easy to phone this in and kind of do it wrong, but no, like they very specifically were aiming at kind of the Hallmark angle, like the straight to Netflix angle, the like light rom-com that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. And like I think it's good. I think that was part of the problem with Bros really tried to come out and be big and cinematic, and you actually see the movie and you're like, you can wait for streaming. This isn't actually really anything you need to go pay $17 for a ticket for, but this is like comes with your Amazon subscription. Like great. Like rolls over really well. Recommends the book. I forgot about that. Like when at the open and close, that pops up a little link that's like, hey, buy the book here on Amazon. Like they know what they're doing. And I think that works really good. The thing that doesn't work, I think, like I said, is runtime. Look, I know we watch a lot of movies on here, and I know it's wrong for me to say 2 hours is too long for a movie, but like come Act 3, I was really wondering, like, where's this going to go? Like, it seems like they've kind of figured it out, and they're kind of together, and that's when it rolls into things are not so great over in England. Like, it seems like, oh, Alex talked to his mom. She's great with it, right? Madam President has no problem with her son being gay. The king, however, huge problem. Son being gay, we have to hide it. This isn't real. There's a media leak and it breaking news, and there's like photos on the front page of the two of them kissing, and the king's like, nope, we're denying all of it. None of it's real. None of it happened. And there's some back and forth there, but ultimately, like I feel really good about saying, as somebody who'd not read the book, as somebody who knows somebody who's read it and likes it a lot, but had never really engaged with it, like I had a genuinely good time watching it. Solid date movie, right? You need something to throw on for a couple hours. You got a partner who's interested, maybe like throw on Red, White, and Royal Blue. Not a bad time. Funny, surprisingly funny. Couldn't believe how funny it was, but I think that comes from the book. Overall, real good. And I should get to recommendations because, like I said, I've been talking about this one too long. Andy hasn't seen it. Don't want to give it too much away from him. So, any other questions, Andy, before I jump into whether or not
I'm ready.
Would I recommend Red, White, and Royal Blue? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Yeah, this movie's super fun. I like this movie a lot. I don't think it's a bad time. If you have Amazon Prime, throw it on. Throw it on in the background or sit down and watch it, right? Give it a go. You might even want to get the book. It's not a bad time. Red, White, and Royal Blue. Good stuff. Can't wait to see these two boys in other projects. I know I mentioned it before, but Andy, we should totally go see Bottoms if we can. That movie looks really funny.
Yeah, but I've heard a lot of buzz about it. I'm definitely interested to see that.
Yeah. Maybe we can find a screen in town running it. Anyway, God, that wraps the show. What are we on? Episode 224 of Off Script? Good Lord. Next week, 225. Big week at the movies. Andy, what are we watching?
We are watching, finally, Gran Turismo. Which was supposed to come out a couple of weeks ago. They delayed it to try to get some more buzz since with the writers and actors strike, there can't be any promotion for films coming out right now. So it's finally coming out. This is the race car story about the gamer who becomes a professional race car driver. This stars David Harbour and Orlando Bloom is kind of the racing team. That's coming out. It's directed by Neil Blomkamp, director of District 9. among a bunch of other films, but people seem to only remember District 9. And we're going to be taking a look at an indie film called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is on Hulu, August 24th. This has a little bit of buzz about it. It's about a group of kind of suburban eco-terrorists, idealistic environmentalists who, they want to blow up, some infrastructure to kind of prove a point or to, be cause a revolution, something like that. Heard a little bit of buzz about this. That's coming out on Hulu the 24th.
Definitely excited about How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Like indie flick about people doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Amazing. Can't wait. Like moral conundrum, getting a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook and making thermite in a bathtub. Like looks great. Can't wait. Sounds fun. I'm not too stoked on Gran Turismo, man. You remember what I said in Blue Beetle being paint by numbers? There's a final trailer for Gran Turismo. I swear it gives away every single plot beat of that movie. I'm like, why? I just saw the whole movie. Why do I got to spend 2 hours watching a longer version of it? But hopefully Blomkamp's good stuff. I know audience reviews for it are solid. Critic reviews are middling, I think. I don't know. Hopefully I'm surprised by Gran Turismo. Either way, keep hearing off script for more. We'll be talking about it next week on episode 225. If you like the show today, best way to keep up with is just subscribe. Just subscribe to the show on your favorite platform. We're on Facebook, where we live stream the show every Tuesday. We're on YouTube, where we're uploading our full videos, individual reviews, this new format we're doing on video. If you want to come check it out, that's where we're at over there. Huge things going on YouTube. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia, all the usual places you get your audio podcasts. You can check us out there. And of course, we're on Twitter, Instagram, all the usual social media spots. You can follow us over there as well. Leave a rating and review, comment if you can. You can email us at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, for more exciting interviews, things we're doing. Keep up with us over there and everywhere else as well. You can swing it. Support your boys here at Offscript, here on episode 224. And boy, that wraps the show. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.